All right.
Appreciate
Y'all
it.
take care.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Dr. Jones.
Fred, I don't recognize you with that hat on. There you go.
Good to see you, Doctor.
Good to you.
Got Paul White on here.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Where you at?
Rusty.
Okay.
Yep.
So Danny, you done settled in?
I finally got settled in, got my earplugs in. I'm good. Got that camo hat on, little beard started. You trying to go thinking about hunting a little bit, then turkey hunting?
No. If hunting was in the summertime, I'd be the greatest outdoorsman there was. Well, I play baseball in the wintertime. I hibernate in the winter.
You don't like that cold?
I can do without it. I mean, I go overseas, and I've been in some cold places overseas, but if I got my choice, I take a 95 in the shade.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too, actually, if I wasn't hunting.
Those bones, man, I'm not as old as some of you guys, but they've been banged around a lot.
Yeah.
Baseball banged me up. Hey, Dr. Mack.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm better than I was last week.
We'll take that.
Jeff and keep me straight.
That's not easy.
Talk about baseball. We got the #1 team in the nation coming in here to play little old Louisiana Tech in a brand new baseball stadium today.
All right.
Yeah.
Who's the
I think
number
they
one
got
team in the
three
nation?
games this week. Today, Saturday, and Sunday.
Who's #1 in the nation now?
Arkansas.
Okay.
Razorbacks.
They won't stay that long. They always get up there and they always fall off about at the end.
Danny and his company built that new stadium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Tornado tore it up, what, guys, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
We started the construction 1 year ago, about last week. Built that thing. It was on a fast track, but we got it done in a year. It's nice, really nice stadium. Big upgrade over what we had.
Can you get me on the field?
Sir?
Can you get me on the field?
I get you on throw the first pitch out, especially if they tell you what kind of baseball player you were.
No, I want to go out there and.
Hey, he's the only one that said that.
Hey, I want to go out there when ain't nobody there and let Judge throw one over there, see if I can get it out the park. I want to see if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wayne,
We'll do that.
The problem is getting the judge over the plate. That's the big problem.
Yeah, that would be a problem. Not really. I still got it, man. I still got it. For one pitch.
The way Judge is, if he knew we was gonna do that, he'd be out behind that pond practicing. He had
You better believe.
set up and everything back there.
I'd want to swing and miss, man. One swing, one pitch. That's all I'm good for. Yeah, you got to be a competitor.
Yeah, the judge had a coach that once told him, he says, "Wayne, you're small, but you're slow."
Yeah, you sure are small, and man, but boy, you're slow.
Hey man, how y'all doing?
Wayne Tinsley.
Hey, Keusi.
Hey, Keusi.
Hey, Kay.
Tree, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
And Dr. Williams on here.
Tree's on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, man. It's good to see you.
Will credit that 318. Will credit. Say, Cornelia.
I was just saying, good morning, Michael.
Say
Hi, Sue.
Andrew.
Hi,
Hey,
Sue.
Sue. What's going on?
All
There
right.
he is. Well, I think I prefer the number.
Got happy heading into work, I guess.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Morning, Happy.
Good morning.
Happy, you had your shots. They're giving y'all shots to go in there and work.
Oh yeah. All the inmates and everybody.
You have both of yours already?
I've gotten COVID and I've had the shots.
So the inmates had the shots too?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
You had COVID before the shot, Happy?
I got COVID on the day I got the first shot. It made my first shot experience a little bit more than I bargained for.
Yeah.
And then I regretted getting the second one. They had a spare dose and it was going to go to waste and they offered it. And I said, hey, I'll take it. But I think I had already built pretty strong immunity. And when I took the second shot, my own antibodies attacked the vaccine. And it was just, it was not a pleasant experience.
I'm gonna have to call you offline to get that broken down to me. That's the information I need.
So, somebody who's healthy, I think, should just pass on the vaccine. Somebody who's not so healthy, maybe asthma or a smoker or diabetic, they should get the vaccine.
Did the prisoners have to take the vaccine or they just offer it to them?
They offer it, but the prisoners, you know, are begging for it in the sense that they don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it's silly because we've not lost a single prisoner where we've lost 5 workers. So because most of the prisoners are young and healthy,
Yeah.
it's not going to really be a big benefit.
Well, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. We ready to go, Sue?
We're ready. We're ready, Judge.
All right, we'll turn it over to the honorary Soup Kimball.
All right, thank you. Game knows game, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, men, once again, good to be here this morning. I see Logan. What's up, Logan? Popped in as Damon Pookie Remigallos popped in. So, and others may come on. And we want to give Keusi this time to go ahead and let's go ahead and keep digging into what we got going here. So come on, Keusi.
All right. Well, y'all know the game by now. You know, Herb will say y'all know my game by now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's kick it off. Where were we? Let's review. All right. Let's get us going. Let's go through our first point. What's the first point?
Pupil.
All right. Give me some information about it, somebody.
4 jobs of a disciple: memorize the words of the teacher, learn the traditions of the teacher, imitate the teacher, raise up many disciples.
All right now. It sounds like somebody ready to get to these last 2 points. Good job. All right, somebody else. All right, what's our anything else on that first point?
Do whatever it
Disciple's a special person.
Oh yeah.
I have
Come on back. You get ready to say something else. Do what?
I was.
You say something important.
Rabbi has 2 main jobs: teach the commandments of God and interpret the commandments of God.
All right. And so
Yeah,
we're gonna that's good. We're gonna move that over to our third point in just a second about the rabbi or the prototype. Anything else on the disciple or the special type of person?
do whatever it takes to learn.
That's key. That's probably foundational, right? is because if you're not the type of person that's willing to do whatever it takes, you're not gonna do it. I'll give you a good example. All right, we were in class. We were with Soup, and we were reciting something. It was a statement, and everybody had to say it exactly. And we were going around the room. It was about 12, 15 of them, right? And people were getting tired and exhausted because they had heard it over and over and over and over and over. And one guy went and he said it almost right, and he may have added a word or left out a word, didn't really alter the meaning as much as he thought. And Soup kept drilling him. Nope, got it wrong. Everybody was like, did he get it right? Nope, say it again. And guy turned red. You can tell he was frustrated. In the room of Christians, he probably would have threw us the finger. You know what I'm saying? That's how mad he was. But long story short, he missed the point. Missed the lesson. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't remember if I saw him again, Soup. I don't know if you remember that moment or not, but I don't think I saw that guy again. Long story short, he missed the point. You know, it was about being exact. You know, it was about memorizing the words exactly, but it was the discipline of it, because that's what it means to do whatever it takes to learn. And he wasn't willing. He wasn't gonna make the cut no way, right? So yeah. So that's just my quick example. Let's look at point number 2.
Position.
All right. Say that again.
Position. You're not above the teacher.
All right. All right. Anything else about point number 2?
This posture begins with submission.
Say that again.
Take the posture. This posture begins with submission.
All right. All
Yeah,
right. Posture.
surrender and humble. That's what
Yeah.
we say.
Humble. Yeah, man.
We don't read to know, we read to become.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the posture that, again, my claim to shame was in 5 years of my first years as a serious Christian follower, I was reading the Bible, and I didn't have the right posture. I wasn't reading to become. I was just reading to see what was there, or to read just to say I read, or because I said I was gonna make, but I wasn't reading to become. I didn't have the right posture. So that posture of reading is important. Good, good. Anything else on number 2?
Yes, that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick. That thought hit me yesterday. I had gone for a run late yesterday afternoon about pastors in America that are thinking that the next wave of the church is doing leadership in the church and bringing in consultants to do leadership, and in some cases even secular consultants to do leadership. And what hit me was that if the pastor had read his own teachings to become, leadership would already have begun occurring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the dread that I have. Y'all have heard me refer to Soup. Let me explain. Soup broke it down great for us, but let me explain how I realized that this is just an ancient cultural practice, because the rabbis in the first century common era and beyond, right? They weren't even allowed to give a teaching unless they authenticated a well-known source or recognized teacher, right? So they weren't even allowed to even give out a teaching at that time. So I just had to validate it that way, Soup. I had been thinking through that because we talked about it a little bit offline. But long story short, man, I forgot what I was going to say, messing around. I'm having more and more of those Soup moments.
Hey, Keusi, does that mean that the surrender? Are we talking about surrender to the process of what the master has set in play? Are we talking about a surrender. I know it would include a surrender to God, but can you amplify that a bit?
Yeah. Now, yep. This one's gonna blow our wig back.
Oh,
so if I just wanted to move, if I wanted to move past your question, I would say yes and keep going.
Okay.
Because the answer is yes.
Okay.
Both of them, yes and yes.
Okay.
You're surrendering to the process. You're surrendering to the person. You see what I mean? You're surrendering to it all. And if you leave one of them off the table, you hadn't completed the other one. All right. Let me give us our I think we'll call this the interpretation. All right. So I mentioned that I heard this guy giving a testimony about, you know, his revelation of disciple making, and he said something that I've been repeating for a long time, and it fits this particular text. And he said what he realized about disciple making and his failure is that he said you can never truly be over the ones who are under you until you can truly get under the one who is over you. I'll say that again. You can never truly be over the ones who are under you until you can truly get under the one who is over you. So super spiritually, we immediately want to say, that's Christ. That's Christ. I got to get under Christ. If I get under Christ, then I can have the proper leadership influence he desires me to have, right? Because that's what that's about. But it's not just about Christ. You cannot be discipled unless you have a human being you're being discipled from. Disciple making doesn't happen when you say, oh, I got the word and the Holy Spirit. No, you're not really in the process of disciple making. You need a human being, you know, to disciple you, right? And until you can truly get under, and then guess what? This is what I learned God is saying to me. You say you under Christ, but you don't want to get under a human being that's following Christ so you can follow Christ better. God's saying, are you truly under me? Man, that's a question on the table. You're not going to hear me say, man, God, you're not under Christ if you're not under God if you don't. No, that ain't what I said. The question is, does God say you're truly following him? If you refuse to follow this designated human being that he knows that has mastered his process and that has submitted to it in this way and truly living it out. That's a question on the table. All right. Yep. Question on the table. Because that's where we struggle in. That's why a lot of people don't get in the process and walk away. Man, I ain't following him.
Why do you think that is, Keusi?
Say that again.
Why do you think we struggle with that? Because we probably all do. I know I do. So why do you think we struggle with that? I'm gonna turn that question back on you.
Oh, yeah. I think we all have the answer.
Yeah.
You know, we can go back to pride, arrogance, you know,
the fall.
Yeah, all the way back.
Yeah,
I think
we don't want accountability.
And I think one is not realizing that Jesus walked this earth in his humanity. We want to always bring up that divinity, but we haven't really studied Philippians 2, and that he made disciples in his humanity, not in his divinity. So he even modeled that way.
Hey, you see, you know, my daughter who goes to the Air Force Academy, I remember her first year, they told those guys, before we let you be the leaders, you have to be good followers. You have to be able to take a command before you give one. You have to know what it's like to be on the other side. It's easier to be the first person in the row at leading rather than be in the back trying to follow. It takes a lot of energy to be in the back and follow. So that you can be a good leader, you have to know when to slow down, when to go faster, because you'll leave people behind. And you need to be a follower to get that.
Yeah.
Good word.
Yeah, it's good. Think about what Soup said also, like in Jesus' humanity, he made disciples. So physically, all right, and this is the first spiritual principle and concept of disciple making, is physically, unless you see someone make disciples, you can never truly make disciples the same way that person made disciples. And so physically, we have a downline. In some ways, we can say that's uninterrupted. I may be stepping out a little bit, but physically, the disciples of Jesus Christ watched Jesus, modeled his lifestyle, and lived it out. And then there was others who watched their lifestyle and lived it out. And there's remnants of some of those individuals, uninterrupted downline, right? There may be some interruptions, but now we're learning how to model it and live it out uninterrupted, you know. And I'm hoping to continue that downline, and I'm hoping to teach others also how to continue that downline, you know. But it was lived out in front of me. You know, I watched, you know, Soup. I spent time with him, and I had the honor and the privilege to see him and his relationship with the one who discipled him, you know. And there's others that I'm invested in and discipling, who's had the opportunity to see my relationship with Soup. Matter of fact, I was just having a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he was just kind of sharing some things and just letting me know that how he observed those things and how it impacted him, which was helpful for me, you know? So, yeah.
But I think another thing too, bro, Danny, to answer your question is, you know, when we hear the word follow and become like in our Western culture, it takes on a negative connotation, right?
Yeah.
It's like you become somebody's well, like in the African American church, you be what you call it, armor bearer. And that's like you just kind of walk around behind the pastor toting his Bibles and water and that kind of thing. And if you're not careful, people can start seeing you as some kind of flunky, you know, and somebody's boy and stuff like that. Well, that wasn't even a thought in their culture. Their culture was one to where the greatest honor and the greatest thing that you could do is pursue someone to become like. So you got two totally different paradigms of culture dealing with this too. And along with what Happy says, you know, when they say follow, you know, it's follow to become like. That's what's all that's wrapped up in the words. When a rabbi or teacher says follow, it means follow to become exactly like. And so in character and stuff like that. But if you notice, all the apostles following Jesus or the disciples, they did not lose their own personalities. All their writings are in their own personalities, right? They didn't lose their identity of who they were. They still had their identity. Simon Peter was who he was. Those zealots, they were who they were. Matthew was who he was. But they followed him in principle, concept, and when you looked at them and the way they rolled, you could tell they had been with Jesus, and that's one of the testimonies, right? When they brought him in, they said these are unlearned men, but one thing they couldn't deny, and that was they had been with Jesus. So something about them, people recognized that they had been with Jesus, and they had spent a whole bunch of time with him, maybe up to 26,000 hours with him by the time he left. And so So yeah, just the whole paradigm of things is different.
Hey, Keusi.
Happening, gents.
Hey, I also what I've observed as well is many reasons why people don't want to even begin to venture into this thought or this principle isn't it? I mean, some we know it's because of arrogance. A lot of it is also because lack of vision or lack of purpose. You know, many believers they get saved and they think that's it. You know, and it stops there, so they don't see the need for advancing and kingdom advancing or even disciple making. So it stops because we see this in many different areas of secular life. You know, in athletics, we know about coaching and business, we know about mentoring and being a doctor, you study under somebody, because all those people have goals and have visions and they see. But when you know, I've seen people, it's like, you know, what's the point of this? Why do I need to follow someone? Is that their vision is short-sighted. It's like, well, I get saved and I'm going to go to heaven. When illumination hits, a disciple says, man, I'm about the business of Jesus and multiplying disciples, and this is the work that he wants. And we see ourselves as athletes, as competitors, and doing something. That's when that's what I've observed more of a motivated heart to want to follow someone to become like them, because there's a goal attached to it. There's something that they see that I'm like, I want that to be a part of my life, versus once I'm saved, I got nothing else to do except for wait till I die, and that really leads to an unmotivated person.
Got a question, Sue. You mentioned about being an armor bearer.
Yeah.
Today's being an armor bearer, is it the same as when what God intended it to be, as far as in today's church?
I think you know the answer to that. You've been in this long enough. You know the answer. You tell me the answer to that.
Of course not.
Okay.
That's all right.
Good rhetorical question.
I think this is a very hot topic, and I think this is very relevant to disciple making. This is the question that Danny asked here that I have asked myself: why have I not submitted myself to, let's just say, a local church or a local pastor? I have struggled in this area. This has been an area of pure struggle for me. And part of it is my pride as a man, and not just wanting to follow somebody just to say I'm following. I remember is it Jensen? Where is he? Yeah, Mr. Jensen, when he talked about how he pursued Mr. Campbell. And I was thinking, man, I'm not sure if I could go that route like that. But as I've sat here and been coming in this class and following Judge Wayne and watching this whole process work out, something is changing in me as a man, because I'm like, I can't lead other people if I'm not authentically in submission to somebody else. And so the question that Mr. Danny asked about disciple making and why men don't do that, I think it's just one that I'm asking, why have I not done it? And I think the reason I've not done it is because I've not just seen enough in somebody else that was attractive enough for me to want to lay down my life to it. And what I'm seeing here in law, there's a thing we say, res ipsa loquitur, it's a Latin word, which means the thing speaks for itself. When I see what's happening in this class here, it speaks for itself to me as a man. It's like, damn it, don't you see it? And so, you know, I mean, come on. And so what I see happening here is so attractive. I was up last night watching 15 Minutes Deep. I ain't been doing that stuff. I mean, but I'm now going back. I'm watching. I'm going through the words. I don't want to just talk this stuff. I want to be it. And I saw it was something he said last week. he said he read the scripture to know what the word said. Study, read to know, as opposed to become the Bible. Become it. And so I don't know, I got excited about this, but whatever. I think that this is so powerful, Mr. Keusi, and I'm seeing what's being put down here, and I'm like, dog, man, I got a long ways to go as a man. I got to get my act together. And so I just want to thank you, Mr. Danny, for the question. Thank you, Mr. Keusi, for the teaching. And Mr. Campbell, I'm sitting here like, this is like real stuff here, like doggone, gee, this is real. Thank you, Judge.
And Brother Danny,
Good stuff, Dr. Fred.
yeah.
You know
that
what?
really
I
was.
love it.
That
I
really
love it when
was.
a guy starts off talking low, and it gets louder and more and more animated. That's good.
Let me
That's
tell
good.
you my story, Keusi.
right.
There are three guys on this call right now, on this: Wayne, Jeff Harper, and Andrew Mulford. If it had not been for them, I wouldn't be here today. And they have inspired me and challenged me. And I'm like Fred. I'm on the list to go. I'm just every day is a new day for the Lord. But these guys have encouraged me to the nth degree, and that's the reason I'm still going.
Yes.
That's right.
Now, brother, now, you know, what Dr. Jones and Danny have talked about, that's the real hinge pin on this thing. Now, if Keusi, Jensen, myself, Corky, walked into a building and we went into a restaurant, and when we walked in, there would be no way you would think, man, those are Soup's flunkies. Those are Soup's boys. We're gonna look the same walking in. Our posture's gonna be the same. They may walk in 10 steps ahead of me. You will recognize nothing from that. But if we sit down on 4 different tables and talk to you all, and we sit down and eat lunch with y'all for an hour, and you throw one topic out, we'll leave. We could leave single file. One of them could leave 10 minutes before me or whatever. You may not even know that we even associated one another when we first come in. But after we leave and y'all gather and you ask questions about the topic that we all discussed, guess what you'll hear?
Same thing.
Same thing. Same thing. So I'm no threat to their personality. I'm no threat to their, I'm gonna use this term, and I know you know what it means, who they are independently as a person. When they ask me for advice, first thing I tell them, now if I share this advice with you, the final decision is yours. Do I not tell you that, Keusi?
All the time.
I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm just gonna share my advice, and whatever decision you make, I'm rolling with you. But it's your decision.
That's right.
Well, that's good stuff.
Because he has to live with the results of his decision. I don't want him to live with the results of mine.
Right.
Amen. Amen.
And I came out of an armor bearing doctrine that I set up under, and it was a it was a unique transition. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I saw your sword and your shield when I first met you. Yeah, I see you. I see you, Torah student, Fig. I see you.
Yeah, man.
So when we say surrender to someone, we're not talking about you surrendering. I'm just going to use this term, to become their flunky. You're just surrendering to a process that they're walking in, that you want to walk in that same process, if it were producing you what it has produced in them.
Exactly. That's right.
That's good stuff.
I think this is also critical. And when you come up in a culture where as a man, you've been treated less than or referred to as boy or belittled, when your manhood is something that has been challenged all your life, and in your culture, it's particularly sensitive to certain cultures, the way this concept is played out, because it's just innate in a man to demonstrate himself as a man and as the authority, the leader. And so I think it plays out with a little more sensitivity in certain situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Fred. I can understand that for sure.
Okay.
But I think that we're all we're all searching still, though. You know, a lot of men, especially in our culture, Western culture, are coming up, especially a lot of young African American men without fathers. So they're searching, and that's where disciple making is even more prevalent. I would even say for us is we could, you know, be their rabbi and show them a different way. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, no matter who we are, even if there's somebody who came up in a home with a father or came up in the church, I think it's important that when we teach them this way, it's going to stick and they're able to duplicate and or replicate what they're being taught. I think so much of what I've learned in this group is reproduction. You know, I can reproduce. That's what Soup said. That's what I'm getting. Like, we can come in at different times, but our message is going to be consistent. That's what I'm really loving about this process.
And you know, I like to be technical and analytical, brother Cornelius. If you look at your Bible and what you see an armor bearer is or was, he was an assistant or support to the general or the commanding captain. But if you look even in the kingship, an armor bearer was a servant and a support to the king, cupbearer. But when you look at the priesthood, when you look at the rabbinical lineage, you have no remnants of armor bearers in that. And so where does this replicate itself in the church at? You know, even when you look at, you know, the community of disciple making, the community of religious leadership and studies, there's no remnant of armor bearers in that model at all. So we got to ask ourselves, where did we get that from? You know, how do we put that together in the church is the question, you know? So
yeah, and I'm gonna throw this out to y'all. Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Right.
I'm gonna throw this out to y'all, but this is just food for thought. So don't go get me in trouble with this with your bride. Because ladies, if you listen to this recording, I'm just throwing this out as food for thought for your husband. I'm not telling him to go do nothing with this. So now I'm gonna record it. Now, let's look at this king thing, right? This king thing. And we use that king and queen terminology a lot in our churches, in our presentations. Now, so if you have put your wife in the status of the queen, right? And she's your queen, then don't complain if she don't serve you. Don't complain if she stops serving. Queens don't serve. Queens get served. Y'all ever read anything about a queen washing clothes, washing dishes, any of that kind of stuff? You see, the highest compliment that anybody can get is that of a doulas. So if you put her in queenship, don't complain if she stops serving. That's all I'm gonna tell you. So
go ahead, Logan. Go ahead, Logan. I see you. And, you know, Soup ain't gonna pick on to these emojis and stuff, Logan.
no,
You
I
know
know
that.
all that. You just gotta kick in.
No, that was good. I was enjoying
That's a high
that
five.
and everything that's been said. Yeah. A doulas.
But y'all feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that I'm exactly follow that. I mean, I get what you're saying. Don't be surprised if she quits serving the queen.
Yeah. Well, no, if she fulfills the role of the queen, queens don't serve, they get served.
Yep.
Hey, the question was, what someone asked, what is the doulas?
Yeah, that's good. Good question.
Yeah. Judge, you done all that study on that. What's a doulas?
A doulos is the word means slave.
Right.
And a doulos is the one. A doulos, pardon, Jensen?
Go ahead, Judge.
Yeah, he's one who has yielded his will completely to the will of another. That you know, he lives his life. He lives his life to advance the plans, the purposes, the person of his master, and that's what he has chosen to give his life for. Totally surrendered to his master's will and loves it because he wants to see the name and reputation of his master glorified and advanced.
So is there a difference between a doulos and a bondservant?
That same word.
Okay.
Same word. A lot of times.
Hey, Judge.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, I'm just going to say most frequently it's translated servant as opposed to slave. That began, but up until the King James Version, it was translated slave, but because of the negative context of slavery, it's been changed to servant. But in the Hebrew culture, it was a position of honor. It had a totally different. You got to take a dry erase board and wipe off what you think of in terms of slavery, because he was a member of the master's household. The master loved him. The master brought him into his confidence, and so it was a unique relationship in Hebrew culture.
Yeah. Sometimes the doulos handled all the business of the master and knew more than the master did about his own business.
Yeah, he did.
One of the unique things about the doulos is it was a position that the greatest goal of the doulos had nothing to do about money or how much he was getting paid or anything like that, but that he enjoyed the pleasure and the presence of his master. His greatest joy was just to be in the presence of his master, and we see that in many of the parables. It's like where the talents, where he says, "You have entered into the joys of your master." That was the greatest achievement for a doulos, because they was in the master's home, and everything in the master's home belonged to them as if they was the master's child. And when we see this bond servant position, is that should be our greatest goal, to be in the pleasure and the joy of our master. And so yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so true, Jensen. And the other thing about that deal is, I mean, the writers of the scripture, you know, you take of Paul, James, and others that wrote, they referred to themselves as doulos. I mean, it was a badge of honor that they're doulos of Jesus Christ. So totally different mindset.
Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, y'all can take it however you want, but you know, we throw out these terms sometimes and don't think of the etymological makeup of them or the culture they really come out of, and we tailor it to ours. But I just want to throw that out there. So go ahead, Keusi.
Man, I see you, Soup. You slid that in there real smooth, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, everybody pick up on that? Damon, where you at, Damon? You hear that? You see how he got that in? He pronounced every syllable and everything. Hey, setting them examples still, Soup. I'm with you. All right. Hey, let me see. So Jensen also kind of brought out another point a couple of comments ago about, you know, part of the answer to your question, Danny, is another true aspect of once we get past the pride and all of that kind of stuff, the arrogance, the next step and the core principle is I won't ever try to be it unless I see it for myself. See, if I never saw it lived out in somebody else's life, watching Soup and hearing him and Herb teach and seeing that relationship, I'll give you a physical example. All right. And this holds true for us all. Sometimes we say we believe stuff and we dive in, right? And I dove in because he taught the Great Commission. I hadn't heard anybody teach it the way he taught it. I hadn't heard anybody express the way he expressed it. I hadn't heard anybody highlight and express those commands and those verbs. And I'm like, man, I'm missing this. I remember going back, praying to God, committing my life to live out the Great Commission. So every time he came in, I'm just glued. I'm taking notes. I still got a box of notes that because I had no typewriter or anything at that time. I still got my box of notes. So I'm getting into this, diving in, but it really didn't hit me until months later, where there was a time when he was coming in and he was bringing, Herb would come in and teach. Ron Surgeon would come in and teach. And there was this one time when Herb, Ron, Soup, and Ray rolled together, right? And we always get this time in if they get there early before service, and we're just kind of chopping it up. And, you know, and we sit up front and we kind of take care of them when they come in, you know. And so they're conversating, and I got the impression that Herb was going to teach that night, right? But I can hear that conversation in some kind of way. It went from Herb to Soup looking at Ron, and Ron got his disciple Ray with him. And Ron looks at Ray, and they just fall out to laughing, right? Because at the moment, Ray doesn't know he gonna teach. And all of a sudden, it just kind of passed the mantle down from Herb to from Herb to Herb's disciple Soup, from Soup to his disciple Ron, and from Ron to his new disciple Ray. And Ray is just white like a ghost, right? How do you turn white and wet all at the same time? And that's what happened at right? So Ray, you can see the fear on his face, right? And I'm looking at him like, man, what they do to this guy? Man, this dude, like, he was just stone cold scared. And so, you know, Herb, Soup stand up, introduce Herb. You know, he passed it over to Ron, and they just giggling. You know, you can just kind of see the undercover smiles. And then they hand it over to Ray, and Ray stands up. And he's teaching something that I had already heard Soup teach and knew Herb could teach, right? And Ray is kind of nervous, and he's kind of stumbling over his words. You can tell he understands the outline, but he's just afraid. He's never been in prison before, let's alone teaching the killers and all these other people. And now he's teaching a disciple-making lesson that Ron taught him that he probably hadn't had a lot of repetition in. So he got all kind of fear going on, but he getting through it. And Ron stands up and helps him out here and there. And You know, he moves through it, and finally you kind of see him just kind of calm down, and he just starts flowing through it. And all of a sudden, like Soup said, you can hear the principles. You can hear the concepts. You can hear the conduct. And you know he was discipled by Ron. You knew that Ron was discipled by Soup, and you knew Soup, and you can start. So he finally calms down, and he get through, does a great job, right? Great job. And that's when it hit me. That's when I saw what I'm supposed to see in disciple making, multiplication, reproduction. And that's when I dove all in. That was the moment. So without me seeing that, I don't know if I would have ever had the true appreciation for what disciple making is supposed to be. But I had to see it. I physically saw it.
Yeah. And here's Brother Herb, old white man. Here's me, middle-aged black man. Here's Ron, younger black man. Here's Ray, Hispanic.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah. Hey, and if you hear Ray teach right now, he's a beast.
Yeah, he is.
He's a beast. I remember that moment. And you know, and to be honest, he did an okay job, but you knew he knew the lesson. But it's a part of the process. You got to get it out the way. So this is why I'm saying this, because there are a lot of you right now saying, man, I'm not going to reteach that because I don't know it yet. You ain't going to never know it until you get through that first time. Don't worry about being perfect. Just do it. You know, get it out the way. You know, yeah. But Ray's a beast right now. Yeah. I saw it. My point of it is, I saw it without seeing it physically. See, I had read all the scriptures. I heard a lot of lessons about it. But until I saw it lived out in human flesh, it wasn't real to me. You know, it wasn't real to me. So seeing is everything. So outside of the pride, once we get past the pride, Danny, it boils down to me being able to see it lived out. The reason why we're not doing it, the reason why is because we're not seeing it lived out in human beings. We're not seeing it lived out in human flesh, which is why it's important, you know, to see these relationships.
I totally agree with that. You know, one of the beautiful things we got on this, being on this call, and all these people that we are able to, all you folks that we get to kind of get introduced to somebody, a picture and a name, but it is about relationships. One of the flaws of this call, we can't, you know, we don't really know outside of this call here. You know, I know I've spent hours and hours with 2 or 3 on this picture. That's what has changed. You have to look at the life of those people as they live and as they function. Yeah. And we, as good as this is, we don't get to see that. It's a great tool for what we're using it for, but I can't see exactly what you're talking about, Keusi, because you actually saw that working in the flesh, working out, because you probably saw. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's making any sense, but this is really good, but it's limited in the sense that we can't really know. It just takes knowing before you're going to follow somebody. You got to see them. You got to watch them operate. You got to see how they treat their wife, how they approach their work, how they act with their kids and their friends. And I mean, all that. And then you start making some determination. Hey, I'm going to follow that guy. So that's where, so you guys that have that and y'all know each other really well, I'm following you, Soup, and the folks that know him well, y'all have had an opportunity to observe him, not just on whatever morning y'all meet or however y'all do life together. And that's what we got to pursue. It seems like in discipling somebody it takes some investment in time too, lots of it. And I see that what you guys are doing.
Graham, can I speak to that for just a second? Because yeah, maybe from one angle, I know for me, that wasn't necessarily the case. I mean, I didn't, and what I mean by that is I started off with with the product. You know, that was the observation, and I realized what I saw in this the disciple making. I met Soup at a KAA at a sports camp, so it was only for 1 week, maybe several hours a day for 1 week in 2017 or 2016, where at that time my heart was just, I knew I wanted to do more for the Lord and to live more radically for Christ, and rather than it's just kind of mundane thing. So I didn't even know about disciple making. I didn't even know there was I heard it, but even when he explained it, I didn't even understand. So I didn't know Soup beyond just teaching, but it was something about the product of what he was saying, and even just within the story, that caused me to pursue investigating. Like I probably spent less than Soup lives in his ministries in Memphis, Tennessee, and I probably spent less than a total of 5 hours collectively in Memphis, Tennessee with Soup. But it wasn't, so the life that I was able to chase with him and pursue with him, it was just essentially wherever he was going. Now I know that's not necessarily universal for everybody, as far as how the pursuit was, but I started off with the end product, seeing and hearing about disciple making and this teaching, and knowing that there was a life beyond what I was doing. And it's like, man, I could live further to advance God's kingdom based on rather than what I'm doing with this Sunday morning thing. And I had some groups and those kind of things that hit me, but there was still this principle that was presented that I began to pursue at any means necessary. And that's what that when Keusi is teaching a learner who's willing to do whatever it takes to learn, it doesn't become limited to, well, and I get in there, Corona wasn't a thing at that point, but the heart of pursuing it still was. It's like I still want to do whatever it takes, whether it's offline, whether it's going to this country or going to this state or following him there, because I wanted to see what it was and how to do what he was teaching about. And the pursuit came just because the product was presented versus, now we do life together, and we spend obnoxious amounts of time together at camp and on the phone and those kind of things. But I guess I'm just trying to encourage you, like, though that there are limitations, it doesn't make it impossible. It doesn't make it impossible. I think once you see the goal and you just run after it, why would it, like, what resource would the Lord not provide for those that really want to be about his business? And if we really pursuing down, disciple making and finding someone who would disciple us, is God wouldn't, like, why would he limit something that he commanded us to do? So anyway, hopefully that was just encouraging. Like it goes, because I don't live in Memphis, so I don't come from that same vein of thought, like being there with him. But we spend quite a bit of time. I mean, I spent time with his wife and kids and seeing his life, and with Keusi and those kind of things. So nonetheless, that's what I just wanted to share.
Yeah, well said. I totally understand it. And obviously being a part of this can see what you're talking about, Jensen, because I have gotten much benefit from a learning process that I wouldn't have got had it not been for coronavirus and
That's right.
and this calls that we're having on Friday morning, for sure. Absolutely.
There's probably more that we can become from a relationship of 15 minutes of intentionality than we can of even hours, days, and weeks of small talk.
Yeah. It's just a part of the vehicle. It's one of the means of the vehicle. But we take advantage of the vehicle that we have until we get access to the other part of the vehicle. And we'll do it. Logan, how do we meet?
We meet virtually. Before this, we would see each other. I don't know. I'd see Soup maybe once or twice a year. I met Keusi in person maybe twice. And then since coronavirus and since this, I mean, we've seen each other more in the past few months than we have probably the rest of our life, just with these sessions on Friday mornings.
Yeah. And where do you live, Logan?
Man, I'm out here in God's country. Ethel. This is far away from anything. I'm at least, I don't know, maybe 6-7 hours from Memphis and about 30 minutes from a Walmart.
Yeah,
That
man.
tells you anything.
Yeah. And so we went down, and I rode down there with Soup, and I met him, and we spent time at his house, his dad's house, and just getting that time in. So Judge, where do you stay at? How do we meet?
You came to my house with Sue, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a grand time. We had some R&R.
Yeah.
Ribs and ribeye.
Yeah. And now Herb is gone. That first bedroom is mine. So. Yeah. You got it. Let me piggyback on something too, because I think all these great questions, comments. I knew Soup had what he called table time. At least I don't know if I knew it was called that, but I knew he was meeting with some guys early in the morning. I think it was from 4 to 7. If you didn't get there on time, he locked the door and you didn't get in. But I wanted to sit in on those. Well, now I get to do it. See, I mean, just think we're on here. I get to experience that. And that's a big deal for me. And my point of all of that is, when the opportunity presents itself, we get physical up close time as often as possible. You heard Logan, at least once or twice a year, Soup and Herb would drive down and shoot. Me and my wife, we would take off and meet them there, Same way with Brother Wayne, we would take off and we would meet them where they were going, because we wanted that physical up close and personal time, but we just took advantage of the vehicle that we had available, and even going out of the country, meeting them wherever we go or going, just because we want to be intentional. And that's something we got to learn to do as well. This is a vehicle. We're intentional about getting up, dialing in on the ID to get on this Zoom. We got to do the same thing when it's available for us to get that physical time. That's pertinent. Let me use a big word. That's pertinent. But we just got to be intentional about it and make it happen. So yeah. I think that's an important piece to it all. So yeah.
I think when you hit on time right there, that's another big thing that keeps people away from really getting into being a disciple. You got pride and you got all that, but once you can get that out the way, then you gotta budget this in to your life. And man, I know in my own personal experience, if I wouldn't have been in the program, for a period of time where that was the program. You wake up, you pray 30 minutes, and you got your devotion time, and pretty much it's your life. And I was there for a long period of time, and I looked at these people who come to Christ, just come to church, and they get this revelation of how much they need God, but they still got all this other stuff in their life. How hard that really has to be to knock these certain things down, where you can transition from living for like your career or living for your social status and this to actually having a revelation that you're going to cut these things out, so you can have that discipling time, before you can even, go get somebody out there, that training time that you talk about.
That's good too.
I've been in ministry a long time, and just coming into ministry, I remember at the beginning of it, we were basically taught by those that we came after, which were older preachers, as disciple making wasn't the important thing at all. Wasn't talked about, wasn't dealt with, period. And it was just assumed by osmosis it was to happen. So once they accepted Christ, they were in church, it's come to church, and if you hang in there long enough by osmosis, something's gonna happen different in you. And so as a pastor, then you don't have an idea, even a perception of how you ought to become engaged. As a matter of fact, we were taught that you move back away from everyone, and you move away from everyone so that folks won't get close to you. That way you keep yourself protected. That was basically the mindset, and that was what was actually taught, how to survive in the midst of people. So
Well,
that was thinking.
For me,
John, what were you? Yeah, I was following you. So, what do you think you were protecting yourself against? What were you talking about there?
Well, protect yourself against
being known, kind of deal. You know, like we all kind of have a fear of. Maybe is that what you're saying?
No, the people getting close to you.
Yeah. So they get to know you too close.
Right. Get to know you too close.
Yeah.
Don't let them get to know you too close, because if they know you too close, they'll know your business. If they know your business, then you won't be effective. So it was about that rather than disciple making. What I'm hearing now is nothing like what I've heard in the past. So here I am. I'm, some years ago, I'm a new pastor. I'm getting ready to pastor my first church, and I get this older pastor who sits down, and what he shares with me are some things that have nothing to do with disciple making. He shares with me, I assume, from what he knows of what was shared with him, and it was nothing like any of this. Nothing.
Yeah. For me, when Soup and Keusi and Wayne brought them to Shreveport, and I heard Keusi's story, and I had been in church all my life and never been challenged to do anything else. But whenever I heard their story, I knew I need to get on the wagon and do what they're talking about. And so that's what I've been trying to do since that time. But that was the genesis of my discipleship commitment. And I'm pretty old, but I'm still learning today. So I'm thankful for what I heard at that time. And got, like I said, I've got three guys, Wayne and Andrew and Jeff Harper, that challenges me every day, and that's what it's all about.
Hey, Mr. Mike, I really respect you. That's number one. None of us on here can say we ought to ever quit, because you're an example of hey, just keep pressing on to the finish line.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And Brother Danny, Brother John's comments are also coming out of a culture context. Now, many times in the African American church, the pastor's like the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pope can't be seen as human a lot of times.
Yeah.
So if someone gets close to him, they'll see his humanity, and it kind of takes him off the pedestal. Some of you brothers, am I right about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's hard sometimes for disciple making to take hold in the culture of the African American church, because of the way the pastors have been taught. I remember when I pastored for that period of time, and the only reason I still shepherd, I still pastor, but when I was before I started my heavy travel man, I love bubble gum, and I'd be chewing bubble gum all the way time to go up and preach. And I'm sitting there, I was a baseball player. I chew a wad. When I chew a wad. And folks had a hard time with that. I remember one time I was coming home from a long day of doing something, and there was a lady in the hospital. So I stopped by my shorts and tennis shoes just to visit her on the way home. Man, she blew it up. So I just said, well, your own family ain't come see you. Now here I stopped by on the way home from a long day to check you out. Don't worry about that no more. You ain't got to worry about me coming back either. So when they see you as human, then it kind of puts a chink in your armor as their pastor kind of thing. If you don't dress a certain way, talk a certain way, they just don't want you to. They just don't want you to see that humanity. They don't want to see that humanity in a person. You see, that's what I've experienced, and so yeah, I couldn't roll that way.
So when excuse me. So when I mentioned lately, I've been on this call, and when I stand and I mention disciple making, it's almost like as if they're in the middle of the road and here comes a truck with lights beaming, and you can just see it in the eyes where people are just they're just caught. Just trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening, and so you can hear the little whispers of conversation going on. What's going on with them now? I don't know, because it's not simply what's the things of the past. It's new, I guess, and it's not that they're resistant, as they don't know. And I pray that they don't see the same in my eyes. And
right.
I'm standing there because it's a challenge.
Now,
Hey,
I talked to Brother Wayne about this, and frankly, some of you guys are so old, you're gonna have a hard time finding someone to get under their wings and tutelage, especially in the concepts we're talking about, right? Now, you can probably find somebody who can teach you the doctrine of predestination and doctrine of faith and these kind of things. But when it comes to walking out disciple making after the standard of Jesus, after the standard of Christ, frankly, you're just going to have a hard time probably finding somebody older than you walking that standard. Okay, that's just a reality. So some of you old dudes are just going to have to form you a group and meet regularly to hold each other accountable to the standard and hold each other accountable to becoming what the word says, so that some of these young guys will be attracted to that to follow you. Okay. And so I see that in a lot of places around the world, that there's just not, I mean, some of y'all had to find a dude 90 years old for that process to pursue. But
96.
That's right. And they just ain't there. They just ain't there. So you're going to have to form your community for accountability to hold each other accountable to this process and keep growing in it, read stuff on it, and keep your fire burning, so that you can be the front runner in it. You'll have the one to establish the beachhead, punch the hole into place, so others can follow you through that hole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, Soup. You know, Soup, I've been listening, and at a time when I was coming up in church, the pastor never taught us to follow him. The pastor would get up and say, "Do as I say, but not as I do." That's what that was their motto. On the other hand, you saying to us, and everyone on this call is saying, I'm human, I'm gonna make mistakes, right? We take the word perfect off the table. But when I was coming up, it was not about watching the pastor. It was not about watching no one, because everybody was doing whatever they chose to do. It did not matter. Now, when I come on this call and I listen to everybody on here, everybody I listen to on here, they are out to be a disciple. I heard the word disciple, but until a year ago, right now, this March, before the first time I ever knew that I was supposed to be a disciple. I never heard that until now. And so being a disciple is a totally different thing, because people is watching me and I have to do the right thing. But when I'm telling you, like, hey, don't follow me, you know, there's the dude, man, that's so backwards, it ain't funny. But now, when I listen to you talk to, and I listen to Keusi, I mean, I'm listening to Jensen, I know people here, Jeff and all these people. Man, if I was to walk in a church with all us together, they would call the National Guard out on us, right? It's that simple. So I enjoy everything that we're doing, and I appreciate it very much. You know, thank you, gentlemen. One and all, thank you very much.
How many coaches Bill Belichick got in the league?
5 or
A
7.
bunch.
A bunch, yeah.
How many coaches Nick Saban? How many of the coaches Nick Saban got spread through college football?
Oh, so many. So many.
Why is that a problem in Christianity?
Amen.
God, that's good. Man,
Amen.
I gotta write that down.
Yeah. Super. Let me just, if I can just say one other thing about this. This is a rich area for Keusi is going to be with us on tomorrow morning. There's a group of pastors, and we've been talking about the disciple making. One of the core things that has come up is, how is the church going to look once all of this is over? And so what are we going to do? Because there's an expectation that it'll be different. The brick and mortar church will be different. And so what is it going to look like, and where should we be at this time? And so we had Jensen on. Jensen spoke, which stimulated a lot of conversation among us. And then on tomorrow morning, Keusi is going to be on with us, and that is the issue. Everybody, these pastors are asking questions. Okay, what is it going to look like? Some are saying, "Hey, I think I need to give up and I need to move from where I am to somewhere else." I'm telling you, it's that kind of situation. So, disciple making has been a part even of the discussion. We've discussed programs, but not disciple making. That hasn't been the vein.
Well, Brother John, I don't want you to think that the African American church is the one that's lost sight of this. The white church has its own misconceptions about. They use the word discipleship, but that it's not discipleship. So I just don't want anybody to think that the black church is the only church that's missed it. We've all missed it.
Danny,
Go ahead, man.
Offshoot of this is I've had a relationship with Dr. Fred, and I've never seen him face to face, but we communicate on a regular basis and tell each other we love him. And, you know, it's empowered me to be a better disciple. And that's one of the byproducts of this.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I just want to throw one thing out there, and not to dwell on, because I know Keusi we want to move on probably, but you know that I definitely agree with the fact that there's a reluctance in a lot of ways, probably motivated by pride, not to be like somebody. Okay. All right. I acknowledge that, but I say this to you. I think deep in the heart of every man, I can say it in me, they long for that. we long to have a relationship primarily with an older guy that we can follow, and it can impart his life to us. I think God put it there. I mean, that's the reason that, you know, I'm at age 60 and I got this hole in my heart because I hadn't had that kind of relationship with an older guy. And so, I mean, it drove me to Colorado Springs to meet with a guy who's 96 years old. And he didn't get off as much time with him as I would have liked to. But I can tell you one thing, that dude met a need in me that I really longed for. And it set me on a different path in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's in the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Both ways, Wayne. It's not just having an older guy, but it's also having guys that you can invest in. There is no better joy that Soup can have than to turn this thing over to Jensen and Keusi and watch them do what they're doing. I don't think there's any better joy than to see that.
That's right.
Two-way street. Two-way street.
All right, Keusi.
Yeah, and we talked about, you know, it's never a problem when we have these discussions, or we call them wrestling with wrestling, because you know, we talked about the model of the church, right? You know, black church, white church, God's church, whatever church, you know, we've seen a model that we don't know where, like it was like osmosis. Where did it come from, right? Because as we scrutinize the Bible and the cultural practices of Jesus, it looks nothing like the practices we see in today's church. And one of the things we have to apologize for, that we shouldn't apologize for, is having discussions around topical points that we're trying to understand. This was a part of their culture. This was expected, and it was a lot of room made for this, right? We shouldn't want to just hear a point and move to the next point without having a chance to wrestle with it. And that's all we did. We wrestled with point number 2. We had a lot of good deep dive discussions on it, because when we moved to point number 3, we're all well understood, right? And a lot of you guys can go back and explain and teach this principle now. And that's another step, you know, in the process, is that forget about, you know, we've been continuing this for 2-3 weeks, well, over a period of time. And somebody, first thing they will say is, okay, what is the expectancy when I finish speaking? So, right, whatever time Bro Wayne and Soup has allowed me to teach on this topic, when that concludes, what's your responsibility to this? That's what we need to ask ourselves. That's a question on the table. Let me hear somebody's thoughts. What's your responsibility to this?
My responsibility to this point is to get in line, get in position, get in the proper position so that I can go through the proper process to reproduce myself.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you.
Mine is, now that I see it, to share it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm thinking that if, you know, after each one of these sessions, you know, there's a great deal of information that we should gather, and we go back and process that information, and also then be able to duplicate it, you know, to duplicate it again and to put it back out.
Be discipled and to disciple.
Hey, you don't show me how a person can go from the #1 drug dealer in Tennessee to become a person that God have used tremendously. And I have to admit, I hate the time becoming when we say 5 to 7, because I never want to get off this call. So you have shown me that I want to do that same thing with somebody else. I want them to be enthusiastic about what we are learning and then go out and live it. And that, man, for that, I cannot thank you enough. I want to live the life that we talk about on these calls.
Hey, who's the host? Can somebody give me sharing screen privileges? Click and share and just let all participants share. I want to share something. I'm sharing something we recently stole.
Okay.
All right. That's what I love about as a criminal. I love disciple making because you can steal teachings all the time and it's not an offense. So the criminal in me love this part of disciple making, right? All right.
Keusi, you should have right, yeah.
So this is our response. Everybody was correct. And this is our responsibility when stuff like this ends, right? This is the reality of it. And we look down here, we discussed, we practice, and we teach. That's our responsibility. So discussion is a part of it. If you're not discussing it, watch this. Now I hate to bring it out, but somebody else brought it out, so I'm just commenting on it. So we talked about the cultural practices of the Black church and the white church, and we know what we see every day on Sunday. Does it include all of this?
No.
Question on the table.
No, sir.
That means we're missing out on something very vital. And now I'm gonna throw my disclaimer. You take it how you want to. Does that mean if I go to church and I'm responsible for obeying a teaching and learning a teaching to do whatever it takes, remember, to assume the right posture, to do whatever it takes to understand, to be the special kind of learner. If I go to church Sunday after Sunday and it doesn't include this, am I being disobedient just by my attendance? All right, that's a question. I didn't say you were. I just asked you a question.
Yes.
Because I want you to wrestle with that. I want
Well,
you to wrestle with that.
I think if you know better, you ought to do better.
Yes, Keusi, I would say that is us being disobedient, knowing that the scripture says that Jesus commanded us to go and make disciples. So therefore, I would say yes.
To whom much is given, much is required.
That's right. Amen.
Better not to know than to know and not do.
So we got a responsibility, man. We got a huge responsibility. Hey, and it takes courage. It takes, like I said, walking on the water. You know, one is Peter walked on the water not only because of his faith, but it was his belief to be like, you know. And we got to be willing to step out. If we want to be like and live this out, we got to be willing to do it, and you can do it, you know. So yeah.
Well, like you say, we can't unseen. We can't, what the word is, the statement we use, we can't unsee what we don't see.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. So I don't see.
That's right.
The disciple making is true. So I can't unsee that no more. You can't make me unsee
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
Sorry, I'm sorry, you just can't.
Yeah.
But Keusi, shouldn't we already have in our grid or our mindset that if we have an opportunity to sit under teaching or even read the word, anything to do with the word, those last three things should be a part of it. I need to discuss it, then I need to practice it and reteach it.
Yeah. So let me, thank you, Sue. Because I didn't say go leave your church. Please don't put that as an endorsement from me. But the responsibility of the end result, because some of you guys have great teaching pastors, it may be your responsibility to finish discussing it, practicing it, reteaching it, right? It may be, but you wrestle. That's why I said you wrestle with it. You wrestle with it. All right. Okay. So let's get back. So and all of this is helpful. So we just totally understood assuming the position and adopting the posture. We understand now, right? And one of the points we still were kind of hinting at was the fact that one of the core principles in all of this is seeing. Like, if I don't see this lived out, if I can't see it, I will never, ever, ever, ever live that out, right? And so I saw the posture of disciple making lived out. I saw the position of a disciple, walked out. I had that privilege and that honor, and the light bulb clicked on for me, and I knew how to position myself and how to posture myself. So the outward expression was something different than the internal. The internal expression is just submission and humility and humbleness, but the outward expression is just watching it being done by a human being again. Who gave a great alternative, because most people will get hung up on, well, I don't have somebody to position myself. Well, if you got one or two people that agree that you're supposed to be positioned, you form that accountability group with them, and you get the best principles, core practices and processes you can, and hold each other accountable to that, and do stuff like this as often as you can to make sure you understand the process. So yeah. All right. I'll share it to the group, Jeff, in the group meet later. All right. So the third, so let's talk about the third point. What was the third point?
Prototype.
Yeah. All right. Anybody got any comments, reflections, feedback, overviews on the reflection part?
If you don't have the desire to be like your teacher, you probably missed the whole lesson.
It's good. Thanks, Tim. Anybody else?
Yeah, the prototype teaches the commands of God and interprets the commands of God.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, Brother Bill brought that up earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, I also had the rabbi lives out the purpose, principles, in everyday life. He walks and lives this out in the eyes of the disciple, kind of the halakha.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a couple points down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why Jesus is the living word.
There.
Oh yeah. It's good. Yeah. So yeah, Wendell just made a point. So no wonder why Jesus was the Logos, the living word. He lived this thing out to model it as the prototype, to be the example in the forefront. And there's this other teaching, I learned from Soup and Herb about John 1:1, where, we talk about, word, flesh, word, flesh. So Jesus was the living word, and the living word became flesh. And then because the living word became flesh, we can actually see how we're supposed to become the word through the living word. And we flesh it out in our flesh. and somebody else sees us living out the word in flesh, and in turn they become word in flesh. And it's a continual process, word, flesh, but it all originates with the prototype, right? It all originates with the prototype, you know? So yeah. All right. And Paul gave us a great example in 1 Corinthians 11:1. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. So this is where this is the moment when you want to have some positive pride, right? This is where the positive pride has to rise up and come in. Don't be afraid to tell someone, hey, like me in this. And what that means is you're doing everything you in your life to align with Christ and God's word. So you're not afraid to take people under your wing and say, hey, be like me. And that's what Paul was saying. You know, hey, he's like, I'm beating my body to bring it in submission, right? Because he knew he was doing everything he could to be what Christ was. So he wasn't afraid to say, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And that's where we got to turn that positive pride on in our lives to be able to do that. All right.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Keusi, I put that that visual in the chat box.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's got, unfortunately, it's got my notes too, fellas. So
it's all good.
It's got pretty much everything we've been talking.
All right. That'll work. Thanks, Bernard. All right. So yeah, the prototype. Anything else on number 3? Point number 3. All right. Let's move to point number 4.
Train.
All right. Well, hold on.
Of procedure.
We skipped one, right? We got number 1, the student or the special kind of learner. Number 2 is the posture position. Number 3 is the prototype. Number 4 is what?
We will be like.
All right. We skip. Somebody help us out.
Prospect. Prospect.
There you go. Yeah, potential.
What is that?
But everyone.
Yeah, but everyone after.
Yep.
You know.
Everyone after.
The possibilities, the prospects, and the potential. Remember that. But everyone, comma after. So, but kind of represents the possibilities. It's conditional, so it's not automatic. So we gotta. That means there's some intentionality from us that has to take place because it's not automatic. It's not a gimme when I become a Christian, and that's where the fall off happens. You know, we get saved, and that's what Brother Jeff was talking about. And he said in the more the white, I guess we could say, cultural practice of the white church, they talk about discipleship, but it's not what the disciple making is. It's a form of just giving your life to Christ, you know, and that happens in the Black church as well. So it's in the church. We misconstrued the meaning to think that becoming a Christian or giving my life to Christ is inclusive in being a disciple. It's not. Matter of fact, if we read the Bible, and I'm not going to go there, but if we look at John chapter 8 and follow that narrative in Jesus' discourse, you'll see him converting people. You'll see him talking to people who didn't believe in who he was. It's a crowd of people, the religious leaders, his disciples, and the common people, and he's going on a discourse. And then you'll see as he continues to talk, some of those people begin to believe in him, and he clarifies that, right? Mm-hmm. Then you'll actually see him narrow his focus down from just the crowd to those who believed his words, and then he says, the truth shall set you free. And then he talks about John 3:31 and 3:32. Those who believe will be his true disciples, will become his true disciples, right? And so he shows us that I don't just want you to stay as a believer. There's a higher calling, if we want to use the word calling or command. You know, is ultimately when you believe, the next step is to become. So you go from believing to becoming a disciple. So there's a possibility, but it's conditional, and we have to be intentional. You know, showing up to stuff like this is intentional. You know, going to places with the person you can learn from is intentional. You know, because without me going to the prison with Sue twice, 2 times, 3 times a month, I would have missed out on some key points in the process. Without me matching my schedule up with them to go to places like Shreveport and Ruston and Alexandria and all those other places. Soup, you had something you was gonna say? Oh. But going to places outside the country, taking the time to invest money, purchase tickets, take off work, and be gone for a week and a half. That was intentional, but I learned a lot in that process, you know, and just getting time with them. So we got to be intentional, or we just have the possibility, right? And there's prospects. So the possibilities, the prospects, and the potential. We talked about it, right? The richest place on earth is the graveyard. Full of potential. But potential is meaningless. I'm trying to live it out. I'm going after it. You know, I'm going after it. That's don't bury me with that on there. I'm coming back to turn my tombstone down.
You mentioned being fully trained. I got that in my notes. Being fully trained.
That's the next point.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So we're ready for point number 5. So point number 5, Fred.
Being fully trained. Being fully. You said without the proper process and procedure, you will never get the right product.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
the
let's
process
take that
creates
word.
the standard.
Yeah, the process creates the standard. So without the proper process, you can never get the right product. And the process creates the standard. And if you hear Soup talk about disciple making, he always uses this term. I don't know if you caught on yet. Jesus standardized disciples. There's a difference, because the problem is we all make disciples. Whether you want to or not, there's someone else out there living their life because of what you did in front of them. But that's not a standardized Jesus disciple. It is a disciple because the Pharisees had disciples. The Sadducees had disciples. The Zealots had disciples. You know, John the Baptist had disciples, and then Jesus had disciples. There's a standardized Jesus disciple that we're trying to model and produce, and we have to learn that process.
Okay, Keusi, this is a point where we ask for those 5 things to build into a disciple. So I would love to have 2 or 3 of y'all give me 2 points each, just 2 points now, 2 or 3 of y'all, 2 points of what you would build into a disciple. That was the assignment, right?
Yeah.
So come on, somebody, pop on it.
Loving God more fervently, investing in missions.
Okay, so loving God more fervently, invest in missions. All right, very good. Somebody else.
Time management and walking in joy.
Okay, time management, walking in joy. Okay, somebody else.
Pray with and for him regularly.
Okay.
And help him develop a love for the word by spending time with him in the word.
Okay, very good. Pray, spending time in the word. Somebody else, couple more. Come on.
I say, go ahead, John.
learn the need to learn, to become, and become to teach.
Okay. So learning and teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Somebody else.
We're full-time disciples.
Okay. All right.
I put
Yeah.
devotional life, which includes quiet time, but walking with him all day long.
Very
And
good.
then secondly, I say they should be saturated with the word of God.
All right.
Saturated.
Very good. Somebody else, come on.
Obedience and accountability.
Say it again.
Obedience and accountability.
Okay, very good. Very good. Come on.
I had a spirit controlled temperament.
Okay.
And I also had obedience and having a discipline for prayer and the word of God.
Okay, very good. And remember, these are things that you must make tangible. They can't be abstract. Okay. And if we're not careful, we will list abstract things. So if I'm gonna develop a love for God in them, what does that look like tangibly? You see? So what do these things look like tangibly? What does that obedience look like on a tangible level? And here's what we want to really focus on and keep in mind as you develop these areas to build a disciple. And Keusi has told us, before you build, you must first what?
Become.
First be. That's right. So in order to build these things that we've listed, you must first be these things you've listed. So these things you've listed, set your barometer or whatever you want to call it, your concordances, or what word I'm looking for. Set your sights on being these things so that you can build them into people, right?
Absolutely.
And if you be it, then the building becomes easy because all you're doing is building into people what you already are.
Yeah. 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 And another way to say that when we talk about it being tangible, think about that learning process. What's tangible is demonstratable, right? If I can't physically demonstrate it, it's not tangible, right? And watch this. If I can't demonstrate it and practice it with them, it's not tangible. So when we say it, we got to be able to demonstrate it and practice it. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I had one other thing I think that might be worth thinking about a little bit. I had a lot of what you guys mentioned, but one of the things I thought of is you got to be, that I would want to impart to somebody is, particularly if you're married, is to be a student of your wife. Because if I look at how a man functions with loving on his wife, it will affect if I follow him or not. If that makes sense.
Yes. And see
Total.
that play. Go ahead.
No, that's total. That's right.
And
Because you know,
that's the easiest.
It's Christ
That's
in
the
the
easiest
church.
way to see failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see more failure. Men can speak and teach and do all these great things, but can they live with their wives in an understanding way?
And I will say, the second time I met Sue, first time he was with Herb. I met him here at another man's house in another place in Ruston. But the second time I met him, he was with his wife, and I could tell he respected and loved her, and he gave her honor. And it was that legitimized me to him quicker than anything he said and was teaching or preaching. It was like he was loving his wife. You know, it just kind of, it impressed me that, because I see, and the reason I recognize that is I see myself, how flawed I was early in my married life. It was about, checking off the box of discipleship, but I wasn't loving my wife right. I was leaving her out in the cold. So anyway, that's just where I thought that was a point that we ought to pay attention to if you're married, particularly.
Thank you, Brother Danny. Now you just kind of authenticated what I was talking about with the queen thing. For me to call Linda queen would bring her a step backwards. For me to call her a queen would take her down. It'd be like calling Mookie Betts single A. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
She's such a servant. She serves me in such a way, and she loves Christ. For me to label her a queen would be taking her a notch down from what she really is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, I had a teammate. He was Mookie Betts' high school coach down here.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the way I see my wife. For me to call her a queen would be to take her a step down from what she truly is. Queen would not describe her. It's too low of a title for her.
How would you describe her, Soup?
Doulas.
Doulas.
Mac, you wanted to hear brown sugar, didn't you?
Yeah, brown sugar. That's it. That's right.
Brown sugar.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
And
good.
she doesn't need a title. All you gotta do is watch her.
That's right.
That's good.
I got one for 57 years, man. That's the best thing I ever did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right.
So we're talking about this process, right? Let me give something else that I learned as one of the elements. So remember this. This is not the element. It's one of the elements in the process of disciple making, and I've learned them as the must-dos, right? So in the process of disciple making, the first must-do is it must be received personally. Like, think about everything we talked about, we learned, we discussed. If we don't make it personal for me, it will never happen. I will never become what I hadn't made personal.
This number
right?
6.
Yeah, this still in part of, let me see. Yeah, we're in process. We're still in number 5.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still in number 5. We got a lot to cover in the process. Yeah, we'll probably have to pick.
Well, it looks like I need to say this. Can you come back next week?
I'm committed.
Huh?
I'm committed. I never break a commitment.
All
I'm
right.
committed.
Thank you. All right. All right. So
Well,
all right, good.
Well, Keusi, I heard you 3 years ago, and then I heard you again. And in the past, you had to refer to your notes. And as we all ask these questions and try to divert you off of your path, obviously, this message is become more a part of you than just a message. This is not Keusi and a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
This message is much more a part of you because you've allowed us to take you places, and you're still able to grip the truth of this and teach it, even though we tried to derail you about 50 times.
Well, you didn't try to derail me. What you did is you everybody helped expand this lesson. You know, this lesson has grown. So we just, that's the beauty of bringing people into discussions about topics, because it's bigger than one person. See, you know, like in our culture, truth is absolute, and it's not absolute in Jewish culture. Truth has the ability to evolve and to grow and to expand over time. It doesn't change. It's more light, more sight, you know, more light, more insight, more understanding. So that's what this discussion, that's why discussion is important, you know? Yeah, it brings out more insight, more perspective, you know, more experience than one person, you know? So yeah, thanks. But thanks, Jeff. Yeah.
Hey, KUC, this morning, I feel like God keeps giving me this picture of that we are a pipeline or a pipe. You know, a pipe's designed to be a conduit to allow water or whatever it's having flow through it. And with this teaching or this learning, too often people kind of allow it to back up. They're not allowing that teaching to flow through them to other people. So, you know, nobody really wants backed up pipelines. You know, it starts to stink. It goes out the wrong way. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. But when we're a pipeline, we're not just taking these lessons or just auditing them every time we meet together, but we're actually taking it, processing, and then passing it on to the next person. And that's kind of our design. So I feel like today, this picture of each of us being part of a pipeline, and then as we get new disciples, that it adds on to the link to the pipes to spread it, you know, further to the ends of the earth, to take that, you know, the living water from God and keep passing it on. So part of that process for me is not just to take the lesson today for myself, but then to pass it on to others.
That's it. That's it. It's good. Yeah, man. Thanks, Pookie. Yeah, good. True. All right. And so we gotta make it personal. And again, knowing the end result, like Damon just gave us, saying that my responsibility is to be this pipe or this conduit, makes me make it personal, because I know it has to pass through me. And if I don't receive it and make it personal, it won't. So it must be received personally. Number two is, all right, it must be taught in such a way that is easily reproducible. It must be taught in such a way that is easily reproducible. And again, this is a simple element, of the process. It must be taught in such a way that it is easily reproducible. Why do you think we keep going back through the points, right? And that means it makes it easily reproducible. See, when we get through, we repeated these points over and over. If you remember the outline, you can teach this, you can discuss it, right? So it must be taught in such a way it's easily reproducible.
And we must not get to the last point, because it keeps people coming back.
Okay, how important is what he just said in a setting where you may teach and may never have the opportunity to go there again? You have a chance to teach something one time. You have a chance to teach something one time, and you may have an hour, you may have 2 hours, you may have 30 minutes. Then how do you tailor your teaching where this can be true?
It's got to be something that the people you're talking to can grab and understand, you know, not just what speaks to you, but what's going to speak to them, because you ain't going to be back for them to ask no questions or nothing, you know.
Yeah. So can we take the attitude, hey, I did what I'm supposed to do. I taught the lesson. You know, let them do what they want to with it. Hey, I put it out there. Man, I shucked it down, you know. Or should it be a mindset of, man, I got 1 hour. What can I put to them where they can easily reproduce what I've put out there?
I hear you.
How many times can I repeat what I'm teaching in this 1 hour period, so there's no question they can take away something that they can easily reproduce?
Right.
That probably can't be 5 points, right?
That's right. I'm not even sure it can be 3 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does
Go
that
slow.
do for us as a teacher if we approach our teaching with that mindset?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like 15 minutes deep.
Yeah.
How many of y'all have done that? How hard was it to get that thing down to 15 minutes?
Yeah.
How many times you have to go over?
Oh yeah.
You see? that takes work. So just think if you go to another country and you've got one shot at people. So is it better to teach 15 lessons so they leave there and wow, man, what great teaching, and can't go reproduce anything? Or is it better to take those 12 hours and go over 3 things, but circle them, circle them, circle them, circle them, have them repeat them, repeat them, repeat them? Because what if something happens and you're never able to set foot on that soil again?
Yeah.
What did you leave behind that's reproducible?
Amen.
Yeah.
That's kind of like saying, don't tell them there's 6 points and only teach them 5.
Yeah. Hey, but he said something that's true. He said something key. You always be mindful of your audience and how much time you're gonna have with your audience. And that's why with you guys, see, we know we got access. You're available, we're available. So we're gonna move accordingly. But if this was an audience where we only had an hour, it would have been totally different. We would have got those points in. They wouldn't have had this much information, but you're getting more value out of this, right? Because you got a chance to go back and practice point number 1 and 2 with somebody else and go over 3 and 4 and then totally understand. So yeah, but we know you got to know your audience. So yeah.
Hey, Kay, so you said the 3 must-be's. Can you hit them one more time?
Yeah, I'm only at 2. So the 3 must-dos. The first one is it must be received personally. The first one is it must be received personally. The second one is it must be taught in such a way that is easily reproducible. Number 2, it must be taught in such a way that is easily reproducible. Somebody put these in our chat.
And that
Number
don't mean teaching is simple.
No, it don't.
That don't mean what we call dumbing the word down or putting it on the bottom shelf, right?
Yes.
We can do a discredit to the word by saying we're gonna dumb it down to the bottom shelf. If any of you have had kids, you could put the cookies on the top shelf on the cabinet. You come back, they done built the tower out of pots, pans, chairs, and got to the top cabinet shelf and got those cookies because they had an intrinsic desire for the sugar in those cookies. So they figured out how to get to the top shelf.
Amen.
So Brother Herb people used to say, oh, Brother Herb, that's too much. It's over their head. Brother Herb said, tell them lift their head.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
So if they want the cookies, they'll come get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And point number 3 is real simple, and we'll have to close out on this one. I'm gonna have to get out of here. You saw me buttoning up and stuff, getting ready for the day. But point number 3, and we'll pin it right here and come back. It must be repeated strategically. See, all else is meaningless if it's not repeated strategically. So it must be repeated strategically. So that's our assignment for this week. Take 1 point, and go and repeat it strategically to somebody. And we want to hear how that went. So this is our assignment for the week. Take 1 point, whether it's point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, 4, 5, or even these must-dos. Go back and repeat it strategically, right?
What does strategic mean?
All right. It's so that's a question for the group.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Keusi. Thank you.
We got one question on the table.
What is strategic? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Repeat
I'd
it
say
specifically.
it's posing a question where it has maximum impact.
Very good. So your
Yeah.
strategic repeating should be to where it has strategic advantage, right?
There's a reason behind
result.
it.
Impact.
Yeah. Intentional with a goal.
There
Very
you
good.
go.
There
That's
you
great.
go.
Excellent, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because you want the results. It's not important for you to say it as it is important for them to get it. So, yeah. All right, Judge. The court is now in your hands.
All right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. All right, gentlemen, been great. Soup, you got what you got? You got anything to add before I bring the gavel down? And I'm gonna have to go get my gavel that's back in the back bedroom.
That's right. That's right. I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
All
I'm
right,
really
gentlemen. Good deal. Well, we'll see y'all next week. If anybody is in here who is not on the group me and you want to be in the group me, which means you'll get some information about